I think there's 2 times the door to the subconscious mind opens up. When we wake up in the morning and we go to bed at night, and it's simple brain chemistry and simple physiology. We have a circadian rhythm. As soon as there's light, our body has been pretty much programmed that we begin to release serotonin and different chemicals that kind of wake us up. So our brain waves go from delta to theta to alpha to beta, and you kind of slide up this way, and then you're back to conscious awareness, local in space and time. When you go to bed at night, you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and you slide down. Now, if you're stressed, you can't stop thinking. You stay in beta, and your thinking actually is arousing the body because you're thinking about your problems. You can't slide down, right? So those 2 points in the day, when we wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, when alpha, or our analytical facilities are suppressed, we're in theta, we're in a hypnotic state. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open. What separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. So as you suppress analytical facilities, you can program anybody to do anything. What really happens for most people before they even reach for their cell phone, and by the way, the statistics are 86% of the people in the Western world. First thing they do is they reach for the cell phone and they connect to everything that's known.
And why is that a problem?
Well, I would never tell people how to think, but I would give them information to cause them to think. So the device is reminding them of things that are known. And every person, every object, everything, every place is mapped neurologically in our brain because we've experienced it. And then we have an emotion associated with our coworker, with our boss, with our ex, with our whoever. And so the moment we start responding, now we start feeling the same way. So now the environment is actually controlling the person's feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
And anything that controls the way we feel and the way we think, we're victims to. So something's programming us to think and feel a certain way. There's nothing wrong with that. You should check your text and do whatever you need to do. But the first thing in the morning, if the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is open, why don't we program a new behavior? Why don't we rehearse a different way of being with our children, with our spouse, in our Zoom meetings, when we're alone, when we're in traffic? Is there a better way to evolve our experience? So if you're truly in the game of evolution, you're truly in the game, like one lifetime, one day. What am I working on today? Can I respond a different way to this person? Can I think this way instead of that way? Let me be conscious of my unconscious thoughts. Let me not be in a habit. Let me stay away from certain emotions. Let me practice feeling these emotions, see if I can maintain it. Now you're in the game. You're out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field. So it actually happens even before the cell phone. Because what most people do is they wake up and the first thing they do is the brain is a record of the past. They think of their problems. And those problems are just memories that are etched in the brain that are connected to certain people and objects at certain times and places. Yeah. The moment they think of their problems, they're thinking in the past. Then when they think about their problems and they feel unhappy, now their body's in the past. And if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, wow. And then the emotion that's associated is now the body's in the past because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. Now here's the problem. If you can't think greater than how you feel, and you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and you understand that feelings and emotions are a record of the past, then you're thinking in the past, and your life will stay the same. Most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. We literally have to become someone else. In other words, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. So most people have experiences in their life that brand them emotionally. They feel fear, they feel anger, they feel bitterness, they feel frustration, they feel insecurity. And those emotions then become part of their identity. So once they think certain thoughts that turn on certain circuits in their brain that are equal to their insecurity, and then they feel insecure. The moment they feel insecure, they think more insecure thoughts, which makes more chemicals for them to feel insecure.
And the repetition of that cycle over time conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind of insecurity. So then the person says, I am insecure. And whenever you say, I am anything, you're commanding your mind and body towards a destiny. So then most people's biology is, for the most part, their past. And so if you're not being defined by the vision of the future, some new possibility in your life, you're only left with the old circuitry in your brain and the old emotions of the past. So the question then is, can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the experience has already occurred? Now, the latest research in neuroscience says you can change your brain just by thinking. So then, as you begin to think about a new possibility, and your brain begins to fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, and you begin to plan your behaviors, and you begin to review in your mind, mentally rehearse who you're going to be in your life, the mere action of mental rehearsal begins to install the neurological circuits in your brain. Now your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's in fact a map to the future. And if you were then to begin to emotionally embrace your future before it's made manifest, in other words, you're not waiting for your healing to feel wholeness. You're not waiting for your new relationship to feel love. You're not waiting for the mystical moment to feel awe. You're not waiting for your success to feel empowered. That's the old model of reality, of cause and effect. In other words, the materialist, the person who's waiting for their wealth to come to feel abundance, they're living by that model of cause and effect. But the quantum model is about causing an effect, which means you begin to experience your own worthiness and your abundance before it occurs. You have to feel wholeness in order for your healing to occur. We have to feel love for ourselves and love for life in order for us to have love in our life. And so then to instruct people how to teach their body emotionally how that future could feel like before it's made manifest. If they do it properly, their body as the unconscious mind begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment. And they're beginning to signal new genes in new ways that begins to change their body to look like the event has already occurred. So the process of change in the meditative model requires unlearning and relearning. It requires breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. What we say in neuroscience, pruning synaptic connections and sprouting new connections, unfiring and unwiring and refiring and rewiring, unmemorizing emotions that are stored in the body and then reconditioning the body to a new mind and to a new emotion, no longer signaling the same genes in the same way, but signaling new genes in new ways. Beginning to pull your energy out of the past and beginning to invest your energy into the future.
The majority of the thoughts that we think every single day are the same thoughts as we thought yesterday. And in fact, 90% of them are. And the same thoughts leading to the same choices leading to the same behaviors creating the same experiences, and the same experiences producing the same feelings and emotions begins to cause our biology to become very similar, very same. And the repetition of that and firing and wiring then creates automatic programs in the brain and body. And 95% of who we are is a state of unconscious or subconscious programs where we've done something so many times that the body now can actually do it automatically without the conscious mind. So then if you truly wanted to change and you understood that your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And the present personality who's listening to this call has created the present personal reality called their life. That means if they wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, they would have to begin to change their personality. They'd have to change themselves. And most people then try to create a new personal reality as the same personality. It doesn't work. So then, if you're sitting in your meditation and you ask yourself the question, who do I want to be when I open my eyes? What is the greatest expression of myself?
And you said, okay, let me remind myself of how I no longer want to think. You know, the thoughts like, whatever, it's too hard, I'll never change, I'll never get what I want. Let me become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts that I wouldn't let that thought slip by my awareness today unnoticed by me and program my autonomic nervous system in a specific outcome. And then if you said, how would I want to speak today? How do I want to act? How do I want to behave? And you reminded yourself how you weren't going to act and how you weren't going to behave. And you became conscious of those unconscious habits to such a degree you wouldn't go unconscious and behave in the same way. That's when you're no longer the program. Now your consciousness observing the program. And if you said, when does my energy drop? What do I feel when I feel those typical familiar emotions? What are they? So let me name them, just so I'm so aware of them that when my energy drops, I can catch myself in that moment and not return back to the same familiar emotions and cause my body to believe it's back in the past. And we can't see a new future from the past. So that process then is what I call getting beyond the old self. And it's a disentangling from the program. The word meditation means to become familiar with. So as you sit there and become familiar with those states of mind and body, you begin to objectify your subjective self. Now you are becoming so aware of the unconscious programs, you won't go unconscious, and that's the first step to change. And then what if you said, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What thoughts do I want to put my attention behind and begin to install the new circuitry, the new hardware? And if I keep my attention on it and I fire and wire those thoughts, it's going to begin to become a software program, and that's going to be the new voice in my head. That's going to be the voice that's telling me, the new program, that you can, that it is possible.
You got to go out into life and try it out. Okay, I've changed my internal state. You could have a great meditation. You can connect, your heart could open. This happened to me. You could open your heart, you'd be amazing, you feel like the day is invincible. And you get up, and then the rest of your day, you're unconscious, the 15 hours of your day. So you're going to weigh 1 hour of being in a different state of being against 15 hours of you being unhappy and rushing and in a program. So then, how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's called change. How many times do we have to go unconscious to the point where we no longer go unconscious and we stay conscious? That's the moment of change. Now, if you're truly out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field, and this happens to a lot of people in our work, they say, you know, I really believe that this is the truth. I really believe that you could heal yourself. I really believe you could change your life. I've seen the testimonials. I just never believed that it could happen to me. Now, this is a big moment. Now you're really stepping on the playing field. So a person who starts doing their work, they're not interested in healing. The person who's truly interested in this work, they understand that the only way they can heal is that they have to change. They're not saying, I'm going to wait for my wealth or my healing to happen in order for me to feel grateful and be joyful in life. They're saying, if I feel grateful, my healing's going to begin, right? If I feel more whole, then there should be some change in my gene expression. So they've studied the content, they've studied the information, and now it becomes extremely practical. So they may have a great meditation, and we've seen this happen to many people. They sleep better, they have less pain, they have more energy, but their blood values never change. Now, they don't say, oh, I feel better, but I'm failing, this doesn't work. They say, what is it about me that's stopping this from completely healing? Okay, how am I in my waking day? The moment you begin to ask that question, you turn on the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe is the seat of your conscience. Now, the moment you start looking at the end of your day, how did I do? This is such an important question. How did I do today? Did I fall from grace? When did I lose it? And who did I lose it with? If I had another opportunity, how would I do it differently? They'll tell you, I've seen them stand on the stage and tell their story and say, I had to start really watching myself in my life. How I was emotionally responding to my ex, how I was emotionally responding to my financial problems. I had to really, really pay attention to that. And that takes an enormous amount of energy. and an enormous amount of awareness
Yeah.
to stop the program, right? So you forget and you go, damn, I went unconscious there. Now, you didn't lose, you didn't fail, you just became conscious. Now, if you keep becoming so conscious of your unconscious states, you're outside the program. You're only in the program when you're unconscious.
Yeah.
The moment you're conscious, you can objectify your subjective self. So you can see yourself through the eyes of someone else. So the learning process comes from the mistake. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. I've made enough of them in my life. It's just whether you're going to do it again.
Yeah.
You want to do it again, you're back in the habit, back in the routine. If you say, this is it, the next time that happens, I am not going to do that. Not for anybody else, but because those emotions actually, my response to that person or that circumstance is actually weakening the organism. Is that person, that circumstance worth it? So then it's evolution. It's evolution. The challenge then has to be met with a greater level of mind. Now, if you're just doing your meditation just because you want to please God or do the right thing or feel good about yourself, that's going to get stale after a while because it's just going to become another routine between your coffee and your shower and your emails and your drive to work, and people aren't present, right? So the familiar past, conditioning is based on the past, that thought and the feeling, but habituation is the programming them to predictable future. That's the known. So if you teach a person how to find the present moment, that's where the unknown exists. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of awareness. And yet, if you practice it, the body literally will begin to respond to the mind. It's like training an animal. It finally relaxes. And when that occurs, your response to people and circumstances in your life will be different because you overcame yourself at the beginning of the day. I believe that your personality creates your personal reality. And in order to change your personal reality, your life, it means then that on some level we have to change, because nothing changes in our life unless we change. So if people understand that 90% of the thoughts that they think every day are the same thoughts as the day before, that's a fact. And the same thoughts always lead to the same choices. The same choices always lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same experiences. And the same experiences produce the very same feelings and emotions. And those same emotions influence our very same thoughts. And our biology and our circuitry and our chemistry, our hormones, our gene expression stays the same because we're the same. But the repetition of firing and wiring the same circuits in our brain in the same way causes us to create a very finite set of circuitry that becomes our identity and our personality. And nerve cells that fire together wire together, which means you keep doing it, it gets easier for them to fire and they run more automatically. So it turns out 95% of who we are by our midlife is a set of memorized behaviors, unconscious habits, hardwired thoughts and attitudes, conditioned emotions that are so familiar to us that it doesn't even feel like fear or it doesn't feel like sadness. It's just who we are. So it usually takes crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis or your lowest point in your life where you're knocked to your knees. And for that moment, you actually have a view of yourself outside of yourself. You can see yourself from a different state. The facade, the whole illusion is over. And that's when a person really begins to think about what they've been thinking about. They begin to notice how they speak or how they act. And I think they begin to pay attention to those feelings on a more regular and conscious basis. And the word meditation, I looked this up because when I started my journey, I'm very scientifically minded. The word meditation, the symbol means to become familiar with. So then the first step to change, if you wanted to create a new life, you have to change. To change your personal reality, you have to change your personality. And the first step is consciousness or becoming aware. So the moment you become conscious of your unconscious thoughts, the moment you become aware of your automatic reflexive habits and your emotional reactions, the moment you can become so conscious of those unconscious states of mind and body that you don't go unconscious again, so familiar with those states,
And how many times do we have to forget or go unconscious till we no longer forget or go unconscious and we stay conscious? That's lighting a match in a dark place. And most people, when they do meditation, they actually think, when those voices come up and when the chatter starts and those emotions start, they actually think that they're doing their meditation wrong. And I want them to know that they're actually doing it right, because you're coming up against those thoughts that slip by your awareness unnoticed or unchecked by many people. You all of a sudden catch how you speak. And people say, if I really want to be happy, let's think about this. I don't want to complain. I don't want to blame. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to stop that. Now, that's breaking a habit of being yourself. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of awareness. And our environment then, the circumstances, our environment are always available for us to think and feel equal to everything in our life, So the environment for many people, as we said earlier, controls the way they think and feel. So when they respond to their coworker, when they respond to the news, when they respond to the traffic in their life, that response causes them to return back to those unconscious programs. But sitting in a meditation and really sitting in the fire and believing that there's something on the other side of that thought, believing that there's something on the other side of some behavior or some emotion that makes us feel a certain way, that's stepping into the unknown. And it takes us disconnecting from the environment. That's what meditation is about. Playing music or hearing nothing, or closing your eyes and not eating, not smelling, not tasting, not feeling with your body. You're putting your body away and you're not letting it be the mind or the program. You're making it sit still. You're training the animal, right? And a person starts feeling emotional and they catch themselves starting to feel those emotions. Instead of letting that emotion drive certain thoughts or actions, that person settles the body down in the meditation and brings it back into the present moment, and that's a victory.
How would an abundant person think? Write it down, dude, and fire and wire those thoughts in your brain and install the hardware. Keep doing it with attention and intention. It becomes the new voice in your head. It becomes a software program. Then say, okay, how am I going to be in my life today? What would an abundant person, how would they behave? And before you reach for your cell phone and start scrolling through your social media, close your eyes and rehearse in your mind how that person would walk, how they would breathe, how they would smile, how they would greet people, how they would be on Zoom calls, how would they be in traffic, how would they be at dinner. And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing the act, if you're truly present, the brain does not know the difference between the real life experience and what you're imagining. In fact, just a little bit of time, you start to install the neurological hardware to look like you already did it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past, it's primed for the future. Keep doing it, keep rehearsing. No different than playing an instrument, no different than learning how to dance, no different than learning how to act or play a sport. Everybody's always rehearsing, right? The rehearsal process changes the brain to look like you've already done it, you've already experienced it. Now what's the essential part of that? The hardware is in place. Now all you gotta do is step into the footprint. Keep doing it, it becomes a software program. You start acting like an abundant person. Everything changes. Your energy changes, your mood changes, the way you walk, the way you breathe, your posture changes. You're out of the known, right?
Yes.
You gotta condition the body now emotionally into the future. Can't open your eyes in the morning until you are feeling worthy to receive. And if you can't feel worthy to receive, then if not now, when? If it takes you 2 hours to get there, ask me if it's worth 30 years of running, trying to get what you need matter to matter. Okay, so then the person who wrestles with their lack, they're out of the bleachers and they're on the playing field. Now, here's what we learned. Let's go back to beliefs now. So remember, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. A belief is something that you keep thinking enough times that you hardwired in your brain and it becomes an automatic program. And we have beliefs about all kinds of things, money, relationships, God, whatever it is. It's all based on what we've been told or our past experiences, right?
The boundaries of those beliefs are our emotions, right? So let's just say you got betrayed, or somebody abused you, or your father told you that money was bad and there's never enough of it, or whatever. That's a story, okay? But somehow it left an impression on you. Remember that event very clearly, and that's kind of rooted in who you are, right? Okay, so that emotion then is the boundary of our belief, okay? So how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. If you take a thought and a feeling, 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 that's called an attitude. A series of good thoughts with a series of good feelings, you say, I have a good attitude today. You have a series of negative thoughts that are connected to a series of negative feelings, you say, I have a bad attitude today. So attitudes are just shortened states of being. Good attitude in the morning, bad attitude in the afternoon. If you take an attitude, and you keep those up, and you string attitudes together, you create what's called a belief. And a belief is just an extended state of being. So if you keep thinking the same thought, you keep hardwiring it in the brain, you keep feeling the same feeling, you keep conditioning in your body, the redundancy of that cycle over and over again conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind of that belief. And all beliefs are subconscious states of being. Okay. Take a belief, and you string them together, you form what's called a perception. And perceptions are just such extended states of being that we're unconscious. And so then we edit out reality. In fact, most people don't see things the way they are. They see things the way they are, right? And people are always filling in reality unconsciously based on their memory. They could be married to a person for 40 years and they don't see the person, they see the memory of the person, right? And there's research to prove this, okay? So how do we change a belief or perception about ourselves for our lives, okay? We've studied this. Okay, let's just say that lack is ingrained in there. You got the story, you lived on the streets, you lost everything, you got betrayed, your business partner took everything, took your wife, you got the story in the half, okay? Okay, you got to start telling a new story of the future, right? You got to believe in that future more than you have to believe in the past. So how do you do that? You only believe in the past when you feel the emotions of the past. The only time you're going to believe in the future is when you feel the emotions of the future, right? Okay? So in order for us to change a belief or perception about ourselves and our lives, we have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional conditioning in your body. And your body literally has to respond to your mind. That the choice that you're making to change in that moment becomes a moment in time that you never forget. And here's the key. Physically, the stronger the emotion you feel when you make that choice, the more you'll remember the decision. Okay, so then how do we down-regulate that old belief? If the trauma created an emotional quotient of 6 or 7, then your decision to change your beliefs has got to be a 9. Right. And you got to come out of your resting state, and that moment has to define you. You could say, I know exactly where I was, the time and day it was, who I was with, when I made my mind up to change, right? Because you created a long-term memory. Long-term memories are created from strong emotion, right? But if the amplitude of that emotion is greater than the betrayal, boom, the body starts responding to the mind, and you're actually giving your body a taste of the future emotionally. So you brand your... What's possible. No, your body's actually getting the taste of that future event. It's experiencing the future now. Exactly. Big explosion in the quantum field. Big explosion. So the side effect of that is if you combine that clear intention with that elevated emotion, you're basically remembering your future, and it looks no different than remembering your past. Think neurologically within the circuits of that memory and feel within the emotions of that new belief, and watch your life begin to change, because nothing changes in our life that we change. And when we change our energy, we change our life. So now the experiment all of a sudden is no longer based on it being hard or trying or wishing or wanting or hoping. That's what we do when we're in lack or separation. It's about change. So then when we finally realize, in order for us to become abundant, we have to overcome the old personality. And that's 95% of who we are, right? Yes. So then the side effect of the beginning of this process is a lot of discomfort.
It is a lot of discomfort because you're stepping outside the known into the unknown, and now you can't predict.
It's scary.
No, you'd rather hold on to your lack.
The pain, the suffering.
Rather tell the story of that. At least it makes you feel something that's familiar. When you step outside and you're saying, I'm not going to complain about money any longer. I'm not going to complain about I don't have any. I'm not going to judge other people who do. I'm not going to say I can't. I'm not worthy. It's never going to work. All those things got to go. I'm not going to feel lack. I'm not going to feel unworthy. I'm not going to feel separation. I'm not going to feel resentment. These are the things that are keeping my reality the same. Now it's no longer about abundance, about who you become. So the overcoming process becomes the becoming process. And so many people come to this work, they want abundance, they want healing, they want a new relationship, they want a new career, they want the mystical, but really, they want wholeness. And
they want healing, they want peace.
They want wholeness.
Because they feel unwhole.
Well, when you're in lack or you're in separation, you're not whole. Imagine feeling so much wholeness that's impossible to want. That's what we're working on with people. Then you can really enjoy a sunset. Then you can really enjoy a meal. Then you can really enjoy your friends. Then you can. I talk to people that are very abundant. I mean, in the billions abundant. And so many of them say, we are in misery.
Because they're not whole.
We're in agony because they can't enjoy life anymore. That's what they want. I mean, people want abundance to be able to enjoy life. They want to be able to do whatever they want with whoever they want as many times as they want, wherever they want. That's freedom, right? Or people want abundance. The sponsoring thought is really they want freedom, right? Or whatever their sponsoring thought would be.
There's two really paradigms, two specific paradigms of reality that are about what's called Newtonian physics, which is cause and effect. That something happens to us in our environment, and when the experience happens, it changes us internally, and then we react to that condition. And when we react to the condition, we begin to function at effect of something outside of us. If something good happens to us and we react positively, then we give thanks after the experience happens. Really, but either way, we're pretty much victims of destiny. The quantum model of reality says that mind and matter aren't separate like that. That subjective mind somehow has an effect on the objective world. So then, if you begin to piece this together, that you can have a clear intention of what you want, but then to move into the state of how you would feel if it already happened. Gratitude is an emotional signature that the event is already done. So if you can teach your body emotionally what it feels like to have the event already happen, and you can get in touch with that, then your body as the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the experience that produces the emotion and the emotion that you fabricate or create by thought alone. And when we move into a state of being where mind and body are working together, or our thoughts and feelings are aligned, there are biological changes that happen in the brain and body, and we move into that state of being, and when we're in that state of being, the universe begins to organize itself to reflect that new state of being.
We have such great evidence to show that there's something very profound that happens when a person has a transcendental moment and they have an interaction with energy. When they hit those elegant states, they sometimes come to events as sick. We draw their blood at the beginning of their event, and we see what happens to their brain, we see what happens to their heart, and we know this person has had a profound moment, and we draw their blood and we measure everything afterwards. If we take the plasma of those individuals as an example, and we take a pseudovirus that looks just like SARS-CoV-2, or we actually take, now recently, we actually did the actual SARS virus, and we put that virus in the presence of that person, that advanced meditator that had that transcendental moment, there's a consistent resistance to the virus. The virus cannot enter the cell of that person. In people that are novice meditators, and they come to a week-long event, some of the virus enters their cell and some of the virus stays out. So there's somewhat of an immunity. In all the controls, they get infected. All right, so we know now that there's some agent, some cofactor in the blood when a person has this moment. So we've gone through some extensive scientific studies, and we actually isolated the very protein that stops the virus from entering the cell. And if we take that protein and we put it in the infected plasma of the controls, all of the infected controls become uninfected. Now, we're not getting that from anywhere out there. We're actually finding it in someone who has had a moment where they've interacted with oneness, with wholeness. And whether there's some change in energy in the blood and there's some proteins being released, but we're starting to discover there's some powerful agents when this occurs. Take the blood of that advanced meditator and take their plasma and put it in a uterine cancer cell. And the cancer cells, the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cells, are switched on and they're pumping out a lot of energy. That's why they're almost immortal. If we take the blood of the advanced meditator and we subject it to a uterine cancer cell, 75% of the energy comes out of the mitochondria. It takes the wind out of the cells. Take the plasma of the same advanced meditator and put it on a neuron that has Alzheimer's and produces the amyloid protein, and there's a significant change in the gene expression of the Alzheimer gene. Take that person then and subject their blood to the variants, the lambda variant, the delta variant, the beta variant, and the same thing occurs. They're resistant to the virus. Now, what does that mean? Okay, if you really think about this, it would suggest that there's very dramatic environmental changes taking place from a scientific standpoint. Anybody who sees this kind of gene expression change or change in biology, they would say, oh my God, it suggests that there's a dramatic change in the environment. The problem is the person is sitting in a ballroom in a hotel. There's not a lot of things going on in a ballroom in a hotel. It's not a changing environment. Where is all that change coming from? Information from the field. So we have great testimony in our community of people that have reversed all kinds of things, and people have created all kinds of wealth and created all kinds of mystical moments. And we have really great evidence in our scientific studies, and evidence is the loudest voice. It is the voice that makes the biggest difference. So, what kind of human being then, who has trained themselves to no longer be victim to their environment? If I said to you, Emilio, what's up with you today? And you say, oh, I'm sad because of this person or this circumstance. I would say, oh, you mean that person or that circumstance is controlling the way you feel and the way you think. Well, anything that's controlling the way you feel and the way you think, you're victim to. So then, when things are good, you feel good. When things are bad, you feel bad, right? And if you feel bad, then you look for something out there to make this feeling go away. But then when the novelty or the event is over, here comes that feeling again, and you got to go chase something else. Well, the response for many people to their environment is actually weakening their body. The stress response, they react to some event, and their reaction to the event is actually weakening the organism. Now, short term, it's cool. All organisms can handle that. But the long-term effects of that just diminishes or taps the body's resources of vital energy. There's no energy to heal. There's no energy for growth and repair. So what we're suggesting is that when the person becomes less victim to their environment and realizing that they're more of the creator of their environment, and their response to the environment weakens them less because they know how to self-regulate and change, they'll be less susceptible to things in their environment, large or small. And creating a life that is meaningful for a person, someone as young as you, and you start seeing that you're actually creating it, every time you get feedback, a breadcrumb from the universe saying, Emilio, keep going, keep your head down, keep going, you're going to run into something big. All of those things are convincing you that you are not the victim to your life, that you're actually the creator of your life. And people who actually do this, it's not that you react, the question is how long you react. And teaching people how to move out of those states and back into homeostasis, back into balance by self-regulating with their eyes open, getting so good at doing it in their meditation with their eyes closed that they could actually do it with their eyes open in their life. Now it's a different game. So get enough people in the world becoming less reactive to their environment. They're less controlled by their environment. And the side effect of that is there's a huge change in our biology, huge. I could say right now with certainty, I can say that if people commit to, say, as an example, 7 days of an event that we do, I can say there will be so many biological changes that take place in their body. We have the evidence that says that. We have such profound hope for humanity in what we're discovering.
We really think that everything's going to be handed to us, or we can get whatever we want. Nothing wrong with that. That's really cool. That's really great. But in the creative process, you actually have to get outside of time in order for you to be able to create. Because if you're trying to predict what's going to happen in the next moment, if you keep romancing what happened past, you're not in the present moment. The familiar past is the known. The predictable future is the known. The present moment is the unknown. That is where all possibilities exist. So yes, there's a function of three-dimensional reality and technology where more things are happening in a shorter amount of time. Certainly, there's some type of energetic thing that's taking place in so many ways. And to me, that energy is actually endorsing whoever you want to be. That's what I believe. So if you want to be a victim, get ready, because it's going to get really good for you. Because that energy is more available. If you want to heal, wow, there's a lot of people healing now, and they're using that energy instrumentally in a positive way. So yes, there's a quickening that's taking place, and it's creating quite a contrast or extremes that are taking place in reality. And the more extreme it gets, the more unstable the system, right? So governments, journalism, education, religion, medicine, everything's kind of fallen apart, and it's very obvious to people that has to happen for a new consciousness to emerge. The thing is, we can't face these changes programmed, because we'll just add to the chaos. We actually have to be relaxed and awake instead of stressed out and unconscious. And we have the data to show that when you're relaxed and awake, amazing things can actually happen to you instead of in survival, stressed out and in a program. So in order to create out something new, we got to be in the present moment, and we have to be outside that pace of where everything's moving very quickly. And technology, unfortunately, is causing people, it's causing people to think. Instead of for them to think on their own. And I'm concerned about that, because I never tell people what to think. I want them to think for themselves. I think it's really important for us to think for ourselves. So there's an acceleration that's taking place energetically, but I do think that acceleration is really just endorsing who you're being. So master the moment and learn how to be a creator. I think that amazing things happen, and that's exactly what we're discovering over and over again, and just witnessing the science is absolutely supporting that you are greater than you think, more powerful than you know, more unlimited than you can ever dream. We have the data over and over again that suggests that, and the testimonials that we have in hundreds of people. We have cancer researchers standing on the stage with cancer completely gone. We see stage 4 cancers in bones and organs and liver and lungs. Metastatic cancer just doesn't typically go away very easily. And out of the bones. There's no sign of it anywhere. I mean, not once, not twice, over and over again. We had 2 people at an event that were blind.
If your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, and it is, yes or no, and you stop thinking the same way, and nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together, every place where one neuron connects with another neuron is called a memory. So as you begin to unfire and unwire, you prune the very circuits in your brain that are connected to the old self. And the memory of the old self begins to mutate, begins to change. So then you would say, where is that memory stored? And it's stored in the soul now as wisdom, because you're no longer that person, yes or no? And if you could no longer behave the same way, and nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together, and pruning is part of biology, you don't use it, you lose it, then your memory of the old self would begin to change. And that is a biological death in the beginning that is uncomfortable for a lot of people. If you're no longer feeling the same emotions that keep you connected to the past, and you keep inhibiting that process, the body will be craving the chemicals in the beginning because it's been conditioned that way. It's been addicted. It's the mind. And it's anticipating events and the emotions from those events, and you're putting the brakes on. And that's uncomfortable. And you got to stay conscious, and it takes an enormous amount of energy. And you're no longer signaling the same genes and producing the same hormones. And your body is no longer being influenced by your mind in the same way. And sometimes the mind is the biggest enemy to the body. And you're inhibiting that process. And the body, which has become the mind, wants its way. And it's uncomfortable to change. And you got to be able to be greater than that to truly change. And everybody that's changed has come up against that feeling. And they almost make the same choice, and they don't. And they're so glad that they did. And it takes an enormous amount of energy and awareness to do that. So as the old self deconstructs, because you have the free will to decide who you want to be on a moment-to-moment basis. And if your life isn't changing and you want to change your life, you got to change. And now you are playing the game, and you are now saying, this personality, this person that I've become, I'm in the habit of being it, and I want to become somebody else. And the more you learn about love, the more you learn about life, the more you learn about possibility and potential, the more you become aware of it, there are more possibilities, and knowledge is the thing that gives us that. And so the old self is a memory, like another lifetime. Like, you can remember it, but you're no longer interested in it any longer because it no longer defines you. How many people understand what I'm talking about? So then the biological death of the old self is crossing a river of change, and you got to stay with it long enough to become somebody else. And you think it's about wealth, you think it's about health, it's about who you become. The people who become somebody else, they see dramatic changes in their health and in their lives. And they can't find the words to be able to explain it. But it's practical, though. If you truly want to change your life, you have to change yourself. You would have to be conscious of your thoughts and aware of your actions and familiar with those emotions, and you would never fall from grace. And if you did, you would stop and self-correct. If you truly were interested in evolution, and if you said to me, I lost it because of that person, I'd say to you, you're back to the unconscious program of allowing your environment to control how you feel and think. You got 2 choices. Stay there for another 6 hours, or pause and change your energy. Change your energy and get back to the emotions of your future and the feelings of your future. It's a much better place to be. Reason this with me. You could have a great meditation and condition your body just like you did into the future. You come back to your senses and you return back to the same old self, romance in the past again. You're going to weigh that 50-minute, 1-hour meditation against the rest of the day back to you. You got to start practicing. We have to start doing it with our eyes open. And the thought of who we want to become should produce the feeling of it instantaneously. In other words, the thought of your future should produce the feeling that it already happened instead of the feeling of lack because it hasn't happened. How many people understand that? And the people who do this well, they condition their body into the future. And they say, I don't know how it happened. It's like my body was led right to the event. And your body's going to follow your mind to an unknown, just like it follows your mind to the toilet every morning. But instead of it being the known, it's going to be the unknown. That's where your attention and your energy has been. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, what you eat. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I've seen it in all ways. So then the thought of our future, if we're doing this properly, should produce the feeling that it already happened. If the thought of your future produces the lack that it hasn't happened, you're still in your past, and nothing is going to change. And it would make sense then that you would want to get that heart open on a regular basis so that you can feel the emotions of your future before it happens. I'm telling you, there is a lot of biology that changes in you. And you do it enough times, you become that person. The thought of it then produces the feeling that it's already happened. That's how you know you're getting close, independent of what's going on in your life. That's when you're mastering yourself and mastering your life.
I travel around the world and I have the opportunity to talk to all kinds of people. And one of the things that, independent of people's beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever, there seems to be a common thread that people feel like something's not right. And I think when you get to a point where you realize that no healthcare plan, no government, no religion is going to take care of you, then who is going to take care of you? And the answer is you, right? So my interest is to give people the tools and the understanding that they could heal their body, that they could create a better life for themselves, that they could overcome past traumas and scars that were created even as early as childhood that tend to be unconscious programs that keep them repeating the same, scenarios in their life, to teach people how to induce mystical experiences so that it changes the frame of the way they look at reality. And so, what an amazing time in history to be alive, because consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention, and paying attention is noticing. So if a person lives a life, as an example, and is diagnosed with a health condition, what they're conscious of is just a certain number of choices that they could make based on the past, based on tradition, based on what's worked for normal or natural. But what happens when that person has done the chemotherapy, has done the surgery, has done the radiation, has done the vegan diet, has done the gluten-free diet, has done the ketogenic diet, has done all the things, all the exercise, and they still have the same health condition? It begs the question, if our personality creates our personal reality, and our personality is made up of how we think, how we act, and how we feel, then the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. Not their ex, not their parents, not their culture. They create their life. So the fundamental question is, if I want to change my life, then that means that I have to change, or nothing changes in my life until I change, right? So the person who's done all these treatments and still faced with a health condition, this is just an example, all of a sudden says, there's got to be another way. There's got to be something else. And so knowledge, information, when we learn knowledge, when we learn information, we make new connections in our brain. That's what learning is. We're forging synaptic connections. But that philosophical, theoretical, intellectual information is void of experience. Someone who takes that knowledge and applies it and personalizes, demonstrates it, initiates that knowledge, is now interested in the truth of the experience of that information. So the person then who becomes conscious that they could actually heal themselves by changing the way they think, the way they act, the way they feel, If I truly go into the experiment of no longer thinking the same way, no longer acting the same way, no longer feeling the same way, and I start thinking about what thoughts I do want to fire and wire in my brain, and if I do it with intention and attention, I'll begin to install neurological hardware. Keep doing it, and it becomes like a software program. It becomes a new voice in your head that goes from I can't to I can. No magic there. If you said, how would greatness live today? What would love look like today? What would be a greater expression of myself in the things that I do? Turns out if you close your eyes and you rehearse in your mind how you're going to be in any aspect of your day, if you're truly present, the brain doesn't know the difference between the inward experience of what you're imagining and the outer real experience. The brain looks like you've already done it. The brain looks like it's already experienced it. Now, do that enough times, the hardware becomes a software program and you start behaving like a different person.
Super athletes do this all the time.
This is musicians, athletes, dancers, everybody who's good at something is always rehearsing in their mind. That rehearsal is just as important as the physical demonstration. It's priming the brain because the brain is a record of the past. Now you're actually making it a map to the future. You're installing circuits to use. If you said, God, I lived my whole life in guilt. I didn't know it was guilt, in shame or unworthiness, and self-doubt, insecurity, fear. And all of a sudden, you're looking at that emotion. You understand that emotion is actually down-regulating genes and creating disease. You figured that out. You read about it. It makes sense. Then all of the hatred, all the anger, all the bitterness you have to someone or something in your past is keeping you connected to the past. So you'd say, can I teach my body emotionally what a new future could feel like before it happens? Not waiting for your wealth to feel abundance or waiting for your relationship to feel love or waiting for your healing to feel gratitude. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. This is about causing an effect. Turns out if you can elevate your emotional state and you can sustain that emotional state, your body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and that emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's actually believing it's living in a new reality, a new environment. Now, the environment signals the gene. The end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. That person is actually signaling genes ahead of the environment. Genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of the body. The expression of proteins is the expression of life. Okay. Every day the person practices going from the old self to the new self. This is what's happening in the world right now. As they start to change and they start unfiring and unwiring and they stop conditioning the body emotionally to the past and practice this, they emerge as a new personality. They become somebody else. And like magic, the disease exists in the old person and there's somebody else. Now here's where consciousness comes in. That person comes to a workshop and they stand on the stage in front of 1,500 people and they tell their story. And everybody in that audience is leaning in. Why? Because they're looking at truth. They're looking at the example.
Someone who just got healed from a chronic
health. I'm talking about stage 4 cancers. I'm talking about Parkinson's disease. I'm talking about rare genetic disorders. And now the person in the audience is becoming conscious of a possibility that they were once unconscious to. And when they see that's possible, it's a 4-minute mile. I mean, 4-minute mile, nobody thought anybody could break a mile in under 4 minutes. They said it was biologically and physiologically impossible. 1,400 people have done it already. So this is the 4-minute mile. Someone's piercing through a limitation, a level of unconsciousness. And now, that's a footprint in the quantum field, but in 3-dimensional reality, you're looking at that person, they look no different than anybody else. And the person says, if that person can do it, I can do it as well.
I think the ego is something that is healthy when it's in balance. Like if I have a bonfire in my backyard and the flames are getting a little bit too big and there's ashes and sparks flying off the bonfire, your ego says, David, step back.
it's preservational, wants to take care of the body. If we're hiking on a cliff and we come to a very narrow path and it's a 1,000-foot drop, your ego's going to say, stay close to the wall. Don't go out to the edge. You could be injured and be hurt. So the ego has a function to really, in a sense, be analytical and weigh what we know against what we don't know, and it's healthy. The problem is when it's driven by the hormones of stress, and stress is when your body is knocked out of balance, it's knocked out of order. That state actually causes you to be altered, and there'll always be a gap between the way things appear or the way you appear and the way things really are. You're in an altered state. Now, for the short term, that's great. All organisms can tolerate that. But if you keep doing that for an extended period of time, the arousal that's created from the stress hormones actually causes the analytical mind all of a sudden to go into overdrive. So now the endorsement of the ego becomes enhanced and we become selfish. That's what it does. It causes us to be self-indulgent, to be self-centered, to be self-important, to be self-aggrandizing, to be full of self-pity, because in stress, there's only one thing that's important when you're in survival, and that's you. And so all of our attention goes on our body, all of our attention goes on all the elements in our environment, and we become very preoccupied with time. Now, when we're in balance and there's order in the autonomic nervous system, there's health. And if stress is when you move out of balance, autonomic dysregulation, then you are altered from wholeness. You are separate from everyone and everything in your life, and you tend to trust less. It's not a time to open your heart in the jungle. The survival gene is switched on. You don't communicate very well. You're looking at how you can get to where you need to be or accomplish what you need to do first, and you got to be there first and compete, because this is all driven by those stress hormones. So the ego becomes out of balance. Now, here's the cool part about all of this. When people are driven by those stress hormones and they don't know how to change it, they don't know how to self-regulate. Again, it's not that you react. The question is, how long are you going to react? If they don't know how to do that, the problem with most people is they start analyzing their life within the emotion that's disturbing them. Now, emotions are a record of the past. So what we see on brain scans over and over again, when you start overanalyzing and overthinking in a selfish way, 100% of the time, you'll make your brain worse. And that will have dramatic effects on your body. So when the heart is racing because it's pumping blood, but you're sitting in a Zoom call and you're smiling and you're looking at that person in a Zoom call and you're thinking about ways to murder them, you're producing those chemicals, but you're not running and you're not fighting and you're not hiding. So what happens is the heart is pumping against a very closed system, and it moves out of order, it moves out of balance. And now the autonomic nervous system, which controls and coordinates all other systems in your body, is out of balance, and that dysregulation causes disease. So then the fundamental question is, okay, can I trade fear? Can I trade anger? Can I trade competition? Can I trade frustration, resentment, impatience, hostility, hopelessness, powerlessness, whatever, anxiety, for an elevated emotion? Can I learn how to dial down those stress hormones and practice feeling elevated emotions? Turns out you can do that. Now, the real question is, when you're in your heart, you're not so selfish. In fact, when there's a change in blood flow to the heart and oxytocin and nitric oxide is released, you tend to want to give. You tend to want to consider the whole. Now, you lead with your heart. You're not separate from anybody. You're functioning as a community. So I think then that our future as human beings is that we have to be able to live in an elevated state in our hearts. And if we fall from grace back into those survival emotions, the key is to be able to self-regulate and get so good at it in your meditation with your eyes closed, so good at it that you can do it with your eyes open. Now that's when the game becomes really, really important. So when people do the work and they do their meditations and they come up against themselves, gosh, I want them to. I want them to come up against their fear in the week-long workshops. I want them to come up against their impatience. I want all those thoughts that come up that say, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, it's my ex's fault, it's my boss's fault. I want those thoughts to be right in their face, and I want to give them tools to let them know that right on the other side of that thought, right on the other side of that propensity to want to get up and quit, right on the other side of that emotion that's keeping them connected to the past, if they're willing to sit in the fire, to sit with themselves, and instead of getting up and quitting on themselves, learn how to self-regulate and create brain and heart coherence, I guarantee you, every time they go a little further and they produce those victories add up. So what's the side effect of that? You return back to your life and you don't need jerk as much. Why? Because you just overcame some part of your aggression and anger by sitting with your body and like training an animal, training a dog, I don't know, training the servant to be present, to be greater than the body as the mind, to execute a will that's greater than those unconscious programs. And what we found out is when people actually apply some type of formula to be able to do this, every time they bring the body back into the present moment, it starts liberating energy. So there goes the frustration, there goes the impatience, and all of a sudden, the unknown, which tends to be such a scary place for most people, is the present moment. You see the side effect of that is the person's more present. They're less preoccupied with all the things that people spend most of their attention on. Now, so you overcome the ego, you overcome the personality. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you got to be able to lay it down. And as you temper your body and your mind, the ego tends to be less selfish and more selfless. And then the side effect of that is that then if I say, hey, look at David, he's actually doing it, I'm going to try it too because he's doing it. And research in neuroscience says you hang out with people that do things, your brain synchronizes and you start doing those same things. It's called an emergence. That's the birds all moving in the same direction. It's a school of fish moving as one mind and one heart. If you study that, you think there's one leader, like that everybody's following a leader, like a top-down phenomenon. It's actually wrong. It's a bottom-up phenomenon. Everybody's leading. So the way we change the world then is that you work on yourself, I'll work on myself. We get to show up and bring our best, and when we're not at our best, we excuse ourselves, get back to that state, and we present ourselves back to the world. And I think this is such a great time in history where people really need some tools to be able to cope with all the challenges in the world.